Once upon a time, more than 100 million years ago, a vast inland sea covered this region. Let's take a field trip and see what it left behind. Our field trip today extends along the Mississippi River from Alton, Illinois, up to the bluffs near Principia College in Elsa. This region of bluffs and hollows is well known for its scenic geologic beauty. In addition, this region has undergone a series of geologic processes, including flooding by ancient seas, sediment deposition, tectonic movement, weathering, erosion, and glaciation, all of which have helped produce today's landscape. The deposition of Paleozoic marine sediments is our starting point for the geologic history of this region. From about 500 to about 300 million years ago, vast inland seas covered most of the central United States, including this area. During this time, a variety of sediments were deposited on the seafloor, and these sediments now compose the fossiliferous sedimentary rocks forming these spectacular bluffs along the Mississippi River. This outcrop is at the eastern end of the high bluffs that run along the Mississippi River from Grafton to Alton. The rock here was a source of building material in the 19th century. Some of the highest quality lime in the region came from this rock and was shipped on the Mississippi all the way down to New Orleans. Here you can see a layer of loess, 10 to 50 feet thick and overgrown with vegetation, capping these bluffs. Loess is unconsolidated glacial debris, blown here by the wind. Rock flour, produced by the grinding action of glaciers, was left behind on the floodplains when the glaciers melted back northward. Since there's little vegetation to hold it down, it's picked up by the wind and was deposited here mainly on the top of the bluffs next to major rivers. This rock flour is made up of silt-sized pieces of rock and minerals. What type of rock makes up this outcrop? Your observations include fizzing and sand-sized grains. What sedimentary structure can you see here? Pause the video here to study the outcrop and record your observations on your lab sheet. What is the likely depositional environment in which the sediment for this rock accumulated? Mark that location on the map of depositional environments included with your lab sheet. What criteria is your choice based on? Pause the video here and record your thoughts. Moving north up the Mississippi River, we find the next big outcrop at Paisaw Park, current home of the Paisaw bird pictograph. The bluffs from Alton to Paisaw Park are composed of Mississippian period limestone in the St. Louis and St. Genevieve formations, both of which are dominated by shallow water marine carbonate sediments. The Paisaw bird is a local legend going back to 1673, when Father Jacques Marquette described the Paisaw as a bird-like monster painted high up on the cliffs above the Mississippi River. The creature was given its name by the Alini Indian tribe. Over the centuries, the original pictographs of the Paisaw were defaced by rock falls and by the pockmarks of thousands of bullets fired by Native Americans, who considered shooting at the image a religious ritual. This is a recreation of one of the pictographs, but not in its original location. The Paiza bird is said to have flown over the great Father of Waters thousands of moons before the white man came, when mastodon were still living. The Paiza means the bird that devours men, and is depicted as part bird, part reptile, mammal, and fish. The colors used in early paintings symbolized war and vengeance, the red, death and despair, the black, hope and triumph over death, the green. The outcrop here is typical St. Louis limestone, thin-bedded, fine-grained, and highly variable vertically, but with little horizontal variation, as you can see here at the other end of this outcrop. Starting at the base of the bluff, approximately 8 cycles of deposition are apparent. Each cycle starts with shaly limestone at the base, and the partings between the thin limestone beds are prominent. The change is commonly abrupt between the light-colored pure beds at the top and darker shaly beds at the base of the next cycle. What do you think might cause these cycles? There are 2 types of rock we can identify at this outcrop. How would you characterize the grain size of this rock? Microcrystalline? Does it fizz? What type of rock do your observations indicate this is? Pause your video and use your sedimentary rock identification sheet to figure this out. What is the likely depositional environment in which the sediment for this rock accumulated? Mark that location on the map of depositional environments included with your lab sheet. What criteria is your choice based on? Pause the video here and record your thoughts. There is a second type of rock found at this outcrop. This rock was interbedded with evaporites as the sea advanced and retreated. When evaporites dissolve in groundwater, they leave behind large cavities into which the overlying rock collapses. Since this rock fizzes, it must also be a type of limestone. This sedimentary rock layer appears to be a jumbled mix of limestone fragments that collapsed into the cavities. These are called breccia. Given that collapsed breccia layers form when overlying limestone layers crumble into dissolution cavities, how do you think this sequence of events is related to the presence of a shallow sea flooding the land and retreating as sea levels rose and fell? Pause the video and record your thoughts on this sequence of events. Can you identify this formation within the local section? Stop the video again here and record the critical observations that led you to your identification of this formation. Is this formation as a whole expressed as a steep cliff or a gentler slope? Our third stop along the Mississippi is the site of an abandoned quarry at Reel Lane. The outcrop is too high to reach on the bluff, but large chunks have fallen to the bottom, and we can study them there. This rock fizzes, and we're seeing lots of fossil fragments here. The fossil pieces are not large, however, more like sand grain-sized fossil fragments, with some larger fossil pieces embedded as well. The rock doesn't sparkle, and I don't see ooids, so which of these carbonate rock types that fizz does this appear to be? This is no longer micrite with limestone, so we must be in a different formation now, most likely a formation above or below the last one. Pause the video and take a moment to note down which formation we are likely in now. What is the likely depositional environment in which the sediment for this rock accumulated? Mark that location on the map of depositional environments included with your lab sheet. What criteria is your choice based on? Pause the video here and record your thoughts. Is this formation as a whole expressed as a steep cliff or a gentler slope? Next, we'll be driving past the 90-foot thick Warsaw Formation. We won't see much outcrops of this along the road. Here's one outcrop of it, though. The dominant rock types in this formation include thin-bedded limestone and chert in the lower part, and mostly shale in the upper part. What's the likely sedimentary environment for shale formation? Mark that location on the map of depositional environments included with your lab sheet. What criteria is your choice based on? Pause the video here and record your thoughts. Is the Warsaw Formation more of a steep cliff or a gentle slope? Why is that? Pause here and jot down your thoughts. Moving on, next we've arrived at the site of an abandoned quarry near Elsa. The rocks here are from yet another formation. Let's take a look. Looking closely, this rock definitely appears to sparkle in the light. The sparkle is caused by broken crinoid fragments. The grain size appears to be about sand-sized. This rock definitely fizzes. Based on these observations, what type of rock do you think this is? What is the likely depositional environment for this rock? Mark that location on the map of depositional environments included with your lab sheet. What criteria is your choice based on? Pause the video here and record your thoughts. There is another type of rock in this formation as well. Let's see if we can figure out what kind of rock that is. Well, this rock does not fizz. It is very fine-grained or microcrystalline even. How hard is it? It scratches the glass, so it must be harder than glass. Based on our observations, what type of rock do you think it is? Pause the video here and make note of the rock type and which observations led you to that conclusion. Is this formation as a whole expressed as a steep cliff or a gentler slope? Now that we have visited 5 sites along the Mississippi River and seen 4 different formations capped by loess on top, can you figure out the geologic history that created this sequence of formations? If you're unsure about how our observations would lead you to determining the correct sequence of events, you should go back and re-watch a section of the video. Finally, can you label each of the formations we visited on this cross-sectional map? If you're not sure of the order in which we encountered each formation and how that relates to their location on the cross-section, you should return to that section of this video and re-watch it. I hope this video has been helpful to you in discovering how rocks and formations are identified and how these observations tell the story of the geologic history of an area.